The third point is the ratio of the body to the wick, and I want to illustrate different scenarios for you here and explain which candles, despite being green, actually have bearish power and show strong selling pressure, and vice versa. In fact, we need to determine whether a candle is strong or weak based on the relationship between its body and wick. Alright friends, to help you understand this concept better, I'm going to illustrate different scenarios for you here. Let's assume we have a candle here. Let me reduce the thickness of the lines a bit so it's clearer. We assume we have a green candle here. First, I'll draw the body of the candle, and then I'll explain the wicks one by one. If they come out a bit crooked and not perfectly neat, please excuse that. It's just a bit challenging for me to draw these shapes precisely using a mouse. Let's consider these 5 scenarios. In the first candle, we assume there are no wicks. In the second candle, we have 2 small wicks, one at the top and one at the bottom. These are different scenarios, and apart from these, other situations don't typically occur. The third candle has a large wick at the top and a small wick at the bottom. The fourth candle is the opposite of the third. Finally, in the fifth candle, we see large wicks on both ends. So in general, these cover all possible scenarios. Either the candle has no wicks, both wicks are small, one wick is long, or both are long. These wicks essentially represent the potential price movement, while the body of the candle reflects the actual price movement. Now let's focus on green candles for the moment. If the wicks, whether on the top or bottom, are longer than the body of the candle, it indicates that the relative power is with the sellers. In this context, the color of the candle isn't the focus. Despite the candles being green, if the wick is significantly longer than the body, it means that the relative strength lies with the sellers. I'll discuss this further when we talk about confidence and rejection in candle psychology, but generally speaking, understanding the appearance of these candles is crucial. One of these candles might be strong, but the other 3, though green, should be viewed as if they were red. These candles have green bodies, but the sellers had more control, which is a critical point to keep in mind. The reverse applies to red candles as well. I'll quickly draw 5 red candles to explain this concept with them too. Now they all turned out a bit different, none exactly like a typical candle. Let's say this one has 2 small wicks. This one has a large wick on top and a small one below. Another is the opposite, and this last one has long wicks on both ends. In this scenario, the first 2 candles, those with small or no wicks, are strong red bearish candles. However, the other 3 candles, despite being red, have long wicks that are larger than the body, indicating that the relative strength lies with the buyers in these cases. Therefore, these 3 candles cannot be considered strong, powerful bearish candles, and you can't rely on them for strong bearish signals. So, the fourth point in candlestick psychology is that we need to examine the highs and lows in relation to each other, which can lead to 4 general scenarios that I will explain one by one. When I mention the highs and lows, I'm not referring to the overall chart or the trends and waves, but rather to each candlestick in comparison with the one before it. Our goal is to learn how to predict the next candlestick. In this approach, each candlestick is only compared to the one immediately preceding it. There are generally 4 possible scenarios that might occur. Let's assume we have a candlestick here. For now, The shadows aren't important in this scenario, so they can vary. And the second candlestick forms like this. So, this would be the high of our first candlestick. Here, this would be the low of our first candlestick. This is the high of the second candlestick, and here is the low of the second candlestick. In fact, here we have a higher low and a higher high. In this scenario, which is our first case, as long as the candlesticks are bullish, if they were red, it would be the opposite. In this bullish scenario that I'm explaining now, when a higher high and a higher low are formed, it means the power is in the hands of the buyers and the strength lies with the buyers. The second scenario is when, for example, we have a candlestick with a certain shape. Let's say we have a candlestick with a body like this and a shadow, and then we see that the next candlestick forms with a body like this and a shadow like this. So here this would be the high of the first candlestick. This would be the high of the second candlestick. This would be the low of the first candlestick, and here is the low of the second candlestick. In this scenario, we see that a lower high and a lower low have been formed, both of which are lower. In an uptrend, if the candlesticks can't create a higher high than the previous high, it indicates that the sellers have the power. Also, note that in this case, the candlestick has created a lower low compared to the previous low. When a lower high and a lower low are formed, the relative strength shifts to the sellers, indicating that the market is likely to fall into their hands. In this situation, let's say the shadow is shorter, creating a scenario like this, or perhaps a small shadow at the top. Either way, it doesn't make much difference. In this case, the candlestick forms a lower high, but a higher low, meaning it hasn't created a lower low in an upward trend. The fact that it couldn't create a higher high but did create a higher low suggests that the movement is influenced by the trend. If this pattern is seen in an uptrend, it suggests that the next candlestick is likely to be bullish as well. If it's seen in a downtrend, the next candlestick is likely to be bearish, and the movement will align with the trend. The reverse scenario is also true. To easily and freely register with the Quotex broker, click on the link in the video description. For example, if a candlestick forms a higher high and a lower low, these two are in opposition to each other, with the high going higher and the low going lower, or vice versa. A lower high might form and the low could go higher. In this case, the movement will align with the trend. Whatever the trend is, if these patterns appear, the movement is expected to continue in that trend's direction. I want to emphasize once again that each candlestick is only compared to the one immediately before it. Dear friends, to make sure you don't miss any of our videos, please subscribe to the BS Academy channel. Also, activate the notification bell so that you are informed as soon as we publish new videos. Thank you for your support.